Greetings, unsettled souls. Welcome to the Correct Views CMIB Games. You're doing political commentary here before the media speaks. Not even at my house. I'm actually at the library, which is a very long and confusing story. But there's only one story I'm sure that you want. You want to know what's going on with Fukushima, and I'm going to actually get straight to that for you. We cover a lot of things on this show. I want to mention that ahead of time. People have asked why we also cover nuclear issues with Japan or regarding the South Korea, any nuclear problem that does so much as sneezes on Japan right now is going to create a problem that could be an extinction event for us. So that's why, in case you're wondering. I want to give you my sources here because I'm going to cover a story that I had written for the Conservative Daily Post just last week. As you can see here on the screen share, Newsweek, Gizmodo, UPI, Fox News, IFL Science, and Study. Unexpected source of Fukushima-derived radiocesium from the coastal ocean of Japan. Those are the sources that I used to compile this, and I think you guys will find it quite alarming. Of scientists to sound the alarm as Pacific Ocean yields shocking results. It's David Huff. He's going to be important here in a moment. General Electric, which is of course TEPCO, has been quick to outright lie regarding the dangers spewing from the failed Fukushima nuclear power plant. The bottom line means far, far more to them than the truth, and even as experts like Dr. Helen Caldercott and Arnie Gunderson of Fairwinds warns that this could still be an extinction event. I write that few are listening. A lot more, though, are sure to be paying attention now that E&E News is reporting that the feds find bizarre results in survey of the Pacific Ocean in the form of record low numbers of fish. We have been told that this Japanese disaster was on the way to being in the cold shutdown. How many of you remember that? Well, that poison was not going to climb the food chain towards man. Does anybody remember that lie? Because that's what it certainly was. David Huff of NOAA Fisheries is the expert quoted who said, "We were really worrying if there was something wrong with our equipment. We have never hauled the net through the water looking for salmon or forage fish and not gotten a single salmon. 3 times we pulled the net up and there was not a thing in it. We looked at each other like this is really different from anything we had seen. It was alarming." I would say so. It should be noted that there is not one single tuna caught that has failed to show signs of radioactive poisoning in the ocean since this disaster began in 2011, and that's something that I've worked very hard to inform a lot of people about. The state of Washington is certainly concerned about this for obvious reasons. And the Seattle Times writes that scientists have been hauling survey nets through the ocean off the coast of Washington and Oregon for 20 years, but this is the first time that they have ever come up empty. That means that mankind has not dodged what has the potential to kill off all life as we know it. Already, our DNA is forever changed and shall be in everyone born from now until the end of time, all because of our nuclear poisoning. If any of the units of Fukushima were to topple in the next 40 years, then it will take to decommission the plant, which we don't have the technology for yet, in this earthquake, then all bets are off. And this is quite real, and the Times also tells us that scientists logged some of the lowest numbers of yearling Snake River spring shingle recorded since the survey began in 1998. So there are quite a few sources here for those of you that like to pretend that I don't do sources when I clearly do. Also show that Huff calls it early warning of how poor, just plain strange conditions in the ocean off Washington and Oregon's coast are. Lest anyone think that this is just Mr. Huff being an alarmist, Brian Burke is also from NOAA Fisheries, and his second opinion is not any better. He said, quote, "Every year is different, but this year popped out as being really different. Not just a bunch of normal metrics that point to the bad ocean year, but the presence of these things we have never seen before. Really big changes in the ecosystem. Something really big has shifted here. That something big is what Dr. Busby accurately called the worst disaster in all of recorded history, and the damage via cancers and other horrible illnesses have not begun to hit the U.S. in the ways that they shall as this damage manifests, I remind everyone. There is no shortage of sources proving how bad this is either. The Daily Historian has published a work which says that the numbers of young salmon caught off Oregon and Washington state coasts during the annual federal survey cruise this June were among the lowest recorded in 20 years. They went on to inform everyone that the numbers were low across nearly all species researchers regularly caught and observed. These birds, like the common murre and forage fish like anchovies and smelt, Brian Burke said it was clear that there was not many fish out there. Lastly, NOAA themselves in the publication wrote that ocean conditions for salmon headed to sea this year are very poor. This year, researchers noted that chlorophyll, which is a barometer of plankton that helps sustain higher trophic levels, is at its lowest point in 20 years too. I hope a lot of people are paying attention to this and really listening, because this isn't the kind of thing that's just going to go away because we want it to. As a matter of fact, it's the kind of thing that's quite likely going to get worse and worse, even though we don't want it to. And there are some more things that I do wish to get to here. If I could, 3 ways radiation has changed the monkeys of Fukushima. This is from Forbes. It says this year, if I could scroll my own mouse, this year the evacuated residents of Japan's Fukushima prefecture began returning home, which is a horrible idea. And because they could never go back there. That's why. It's so poisoned, they can never go back. They should never go back. It will be toxic to their health, but they're doing it. And as they resume their lives, the monkeys who have lived there all along have some cautions for them in the form of medical records. Mackies show effects associated with radiation exposure, especially youngsters born since the 2011 meltdowns at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. This is according to a wildlife veterinarian who has studied the population since '08. Dr. Shinichi Hayama detailed his findings Saturday in Chicago as part of the University of Chicago's commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the first man-made controlled nuclear reaction, and that took place under the university's football stadium in 1942, and birthed the technologies, of course, of nuke power and weapons. Hayama appeared alongside documentary filmmaker Masanori Iwasaki, who was featured in Hayama's work in a series of annual documentaries on wildlife. The fallout led the Japanese government to evacuate residents from highly contaminated areas surrounding the plant and extending northwest. The plume crossed the Pacific Ocean and left much diluted qualities of fallout across the U.S. Since '08, Hayama has studied the bodies of the monkeys killed in Fukushima City's effort to control the monkey population and protect agricultural crops. And about 20,000 monkeys were culled, it says. Because they're already studying the monkeys, he is ideally positioned to notice the effects of radiation. It says, I'm not a radiation specialist, but because I have been gathering data since '08, remember the disaster took place in '11, it seems obvious to me that this is very important research. I've asked radiation specialists to take on this research, but they have not been willing to do it because they don't want to waste any resources and time to spare on humans. So I had to conclude that there was no choice but for me to take this on, even though I'm not a specialist. If we don't keep records, there will be no evidence, and it will be as if nothing happened. That's why I'm hoping to continue the research and create a record. Yeah, I bet there is. And what they have found is that the deformities and the levels of radiation that are trying to be covered up here are nothing short of massive. And they want to cover it up, and I can tell you why. Because if they can hide what they have done now, then later on when people sue, they'll be like, well, there's no data saying that it even hurt the monkeys, so how could it have climbed the food chain towards you? Chris Busby has explained that that's why we're burning so many things all over Japan. Because if we burn something here, and it drifts over here, then they're going to say that this is nowhere near Fukushima, therefore that couldn't be the cause. But we know that it was the cause. They simply burn it and allow the debris to poison all of Japan in order to cover their own tracks. And this can't be overstated, friends. It really can't. We do have a few more things to get to before I jump off here. Listen to this. Watch the video. Japan tsunami brings 300 marine species to the west coast of the USA. This is just interesting. Of course, we know the tsunami triggered a magnitude 9.0 earthquake. And since that date, 300 species of marine life have made their way across the Pacific Ocean to the west coast of the U.S. Experts are now saying that this is the longest ever maritime migration in recorded history, as around 1 million Japanese marine creatures, including sea slugs, sea worms, and crustaceans, have traveled the amazing 4,800 miles, clinging onto a huge flotilla of debris from the tsunami. In a study published in Science this week, John Chapman of Oregon State University said it had turned into one of the largest unplanned natural experiments in the field of marine biology and in probably all of history itself. 70% of the 5 million tons of debris sank into the ocean floor, but submarine creatures traveled across the ocean as hitchhikers on the series of docks, buoys, boats, and other buoyant objects, which of course are radioactive. According to the BBC, the study notes that between June of 12 and February of 17, at least 289 marine species from Japan attached to 600 pieces of buoyant debris and washed in the U.S. Now they're on coaches. They're on the coasts of Alaska, California, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington, along with British Columbia and Canada. These are species that have never been seen in these areas before. Greg Gurr, co-author of the study and marine biologist with the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, said he wouldn't have thought most of these organisms could survive such long periods at sea. Well, of course they have. And we've got all kinds of species in life where it hasn't been before. Thought that would be interesting. I got two more to close off with here, and they are dealing with the Orient and the nuclear problems that we are seeing there as well. One of them is from the New York Times. Our source was the New York Times. Anybody, Dr. Strangelove? Anybody? Word of the day. New York Times. Put that in my comment line. Let me know where to send you something free, and I'll do so first person. South Korea and China in dispute over missile defense system. Now, this is very important because this is one of the sticking points that some people thought could possibly lead to World War III. South Korea and China on Tuesday agreed to end a dispute over the deployment of an advanced American missile defense system in the South and to restore their economic and other ties. This is very helpful in order to keep North Korea in check because they're threatening everyone. The agreement, unveiled following low-key negotiations involving Chinese and South Korean officials, removed a major obstacle in relations between Seoul and Beijing, one of the complicated international efforts to tame North Korea's weapons ambitions. For those of you that don't know, the THAAD nuclear defense system and various other means were used. And basically, let's say that this is THAAD. If a missile comes over, THAAD, which you can't see because it's off screen, would shoot a rocket up to stop a North Korean rocket. And they can accidentally spy on China, which has something that has angered them greatly. And it can be used as an offensive weapon, according to the Chinese, though the U.S. says that is not the case. China has vehemently protested the United States' plan to deploy the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, THAAD, in South Korea, fearing that it could undercut its own national security. After the U.S. and South Korea pressed ahead with the deployment in Sindu, 135 miles southeast of Seoul, the capital of South Korea, in April, Chinese customers boycotted South Korean cars. Now, both sides shared the view that the strengthening of exchange and cooperation between Korea and China serves their common interests and agreed to expeditiously bring exchange and cooperation in all areas back on a normal developmental track, said a statement from the South Korean Foreign Ministry on Tuesday. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also issued a similar statement announcing the agreement on Tuesday. This is wonderful news, friends. At Washington's urging, South Korea and Japan have been expanding their military cooperation to deal with North Korea. The fact that the Chinese may no longer be looking to start some kind of a conflict with the U.S. over the United States' need to defend itself is literally worth its weight in gold and maybe the most important development to come along in quite some time. And friends, you know what that does. That brings us to the dummy of the day. And the dummy of the day here, not quite as clear as you would expect, but I will make it clear for you, I promise. All right, Donald Trump is going to test the readiness of Hawaii, but there's been a lot of money already given towards this, and it's bothersome that it's not already something that we're more confident with. This is from Blasting News. Donald Trump to visit Hawaii to check its readiness for a nuclear attack. U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to make his first visit ever to Hawaii, which is America's outpost in the Pacific. Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, has identified Hawaii as one of his probable targets, and the state has taken necessary actions to tackle any threat of a possible nuclear attack. The only thing that worries me is that we have known about the threat there for a considerable length of time, and it seems to be something that a lot of people hadn't taken seriously soon enough. And I don't know, I find that to be more than mildly troublesome. Is anybody with me on this? It's not like the North Korean problem is new. It says Hawaiians are worried about the verbal onslaught between Trump and Kim, which has become a matter of concern. The people of Hawaii are determined to counter any possible nuclear attack, and the first step, a nuclear warning siren, has been lying idle since the height of the Cold War is proposed to be revived. Why would they have ever let that fall, considering what North Korea has been threatening long before Trump ever took to the stage? This is a little bit about what Trump was saying about how our infrastructure and our basic readiness has gone down the tubes. And I don't care if you like Trump or not, this is true, and what he's trying to fix here needs to be praised. There will be awareness drives to apprise residents of actions that must be taken in case of an attack. I did cover with the conservative Daily Post about the drills that are being conducted there and people hiding under desks. Sky News reports that authorities in Hawaii believe there is no reason for alarm because the possibilities of a nuclear attack appear to be exaggerated. That's a cop-out. Because when you're dealing with a madman like Kim Jong-un who's promising to throw nukes, you have to take him at his word. Necessary here to be prepared to fend off any challenges. As part of the exercise, the public has been educated for the worst-case scenario, which is, of course, what they've been promised from Kim Jong-un. In order to issue the warning of an impending attack, sirens will be sounded. As part of the awareness program, the public meeting has convened in Pearl City, where the head of Hawaii's emergency management agency explained to the residents various aspects of a nuclear attack. However, the preparation must focus on getting people acquainted with evacuation drills, which are being done in Japan and Guam. They're also on a hit list for Kim Jong-un. Trump's Asia visit, of course, is underway, and he is committed to defending against any possible nuclear attack from Korea. So it is good to see that we are taking an active role in what we're doing there. It's just that it was something that should have never been allowed to become lax in North Korea to begin with. That, friends, is your massive Fukushima update. Please share it far and wide, and I've got viewers down there, I see you. Before you log off, please donate at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. Every penny you give to me goes towards a better show. You can donate through PayPal, and if you do so, maybe I'll even have internet at my house instead of having to use the library. Wouldn't that be nice? Good night, friends. God bless.